final preparations are well underway for the British royal wedding. I'm joined now by our UK correspondent, Natalie Powell from Windsor. A very good morning to you, Natalie, looking rather dashing and ready for the pomp and ceremony. Before we get into the official program and we get into today's events, I want to talk to you about your outfit selection. We can tell it's pretty cold. You've got a coat on. Tell us about the hat.
Oh, this is a hat that, I've worn for the special occasion. I'm actually hoping to get an invite into Windsor Castle, which is just behind me. So, you've got to dress up for these occasions.
Of course, of course. And now we understand thousands of people have been camping out from as early as Thursday already. How many people are expected at the wedding today?
You're absolutely right. For a number of days now, there have been quite a few people camping out. And what you said earlier is correct, too. It's pretty chilly here at the moment, although the weather is expected to get much better a little bit later on during the ceremony. So it should be a good day for that. At the moment, we're expecting around about 100,000 people to line the procession routes. As I've said, a lot of those people have stayed overnight in fairly cold conditions, but a lot of people arriving here this morning as well. And we can see them probably heading up the street behind me, where they will be going to get the prime positions available. Of course, the earlier they get here, the more that they are likely to see. But the official ceremony is not really expected to kick off for a couple of hours. That's when all of the guests will be arriving. And then, of course, about lunchtime, about 1 p.m. in South Africa, that's when we're likely to get the very first glimpse of Meghan Markle in that all-important dress.
Let's talk about her, the princess in waiting. What would she have been doing in the lead up to this morning, especially last night? What would have been happening?
Well, I imagine there's quite a lot of nerves and jitters, of course, like any bride ahead of her wedding day, but particularly this one. She's entering the royal family, and she's entering on a day where the entire world will be watching her. So no doubt a few nerves ahead of this ceremony. We know, though, that she spent last night in a hotel in Berkshire, which is just down the road from here. So fairly traditionally, of course, spending the night away from her husband-to-be. She was there with her mother, Doria, who we know will be accompanying her to the wedding ceremony herself. But interestingly, she won't be the one that walks Meghan down the aisle. We know that there's been a lot of to and froing over whether her father, Thomas Markle, will be attending. He won't be, but instead we understand that Meghan will walk herself part the way down the aisle by herself, and then she will be accompanied by her soon-to-be father-in-law, Prince Charles, who takes up that duty of escorting her down the aisle.
Right, and we also understand that their actual reception is much smaller than his brother's was. He had some 2,000 guests. Apparently, they're going to be having 600 guests for their reception. Let's talk about the guest list. Who's invited? We understand Theresa May didn't make the cut.
That's right. In fact, no politicians or foreign dignitaries have been invited to this one. As you've said, it's a much smaller scale wedding than we saw for the wedding of William and Kate. Harry, of course, is sixth in line to the royal throne, so that's not a real surprise. And St. George's Chapel inside Windsor Castle is a much smaller venue, so that's why there are fewer numbers of people arriving. We are expecting 600 people, though, for the ceremony itself. They are all going to be people that Meghan and Harry know, and, of course, members of the royal family. And then afterwards we have more private receptions. One of them will be headed up by the Queen, and then much later on into the evening another private reception where guests can really let their hair down. We don't actually know completely who is on the guest list, though, but we are expecting quite a lot of famous faces as they arrive into Windsor Castle, given that Meghan and Harry are fairly popular people and know quite a lot of famous faces. We do know in terms of the bridesmaids, though, who they will be made up of godchildren of both Harry and Meghan, and of course the very special bridesmaid and page boy of Princess Charlotte and Prince George. That's of course William and Kate's children.
You mentioned 100,000 people will be lining the streets of Windsor. 100,000 more will be watching on television or streaming the event. But you've got ordinary people who actually do not even care. So a lady jogged past you just now a couple of moments ago.
That's right. In fact, I would assume that if you're not really into the royal family, then you're probably not going to be spending the day in Windsor, because it's going to be jam-packed there today, of course. And as you've said, there are quite a few people that just simply aren't interested. It's also the FA Cup final today, so most football fans will probably rather watch that on television than the royal wedding. But yes, as you've said, a lot of people here for this occasion. They're dressed and draped in Union Jack flags, but a lot of joggers and other people who simply live here probably not that interested by it. And of course, the people that live in Windsor are very used to seeing members of the royal family all the time when they come to visit.
What do you get someone who has everything? It's going to be difficult as a guest to figure out what to bring to this wedding.
That is a very good question. They do seem like the couple that have absolutely everything, don't they? Interestingly, though, for their guest list, they're not actually asking for presents, but for people to make charitable donations. We know that this is one of the areas that the pair have really come together on, is their charity work. And that's really one of the reasons why they got together in the first place, and they found common ground there. So a fairly charitable couple. But you're right, if you are searching for that perfect gift for them, it's going to be very difficult indeed. They do seem to have everything, and they certainly seem to be very in love with each other. So presumably for them, it's about the day and not necessarily the gifts.
Indeed. We'll touch base with you in about 30 minutes' time. Looking very, very lovely. Thank you very much to our colleague in the United Kingdom, Natalie Powell, on that much anticipated wedding. We'll take you there as soon as it gets underway.